Psalm 132. We're dealing with the Psalms of Ascent. Remember, this is this group of 15 Psalms, which are all put together into one little section. They all have similar themes. They all reference Jerusalem or worship or temple. These would be songs that were sung as they were on their way to Jerusalem. So, maybe this isn't exactly right, but I picture this as kind of like teen camp. You know what happens when you go on to teen camp? You sing the same songs on the bus to kind of prepare you for getting there. It's a time of focus and preparation of worship, and it changes, and it's very important. And every teen director tries to make sure this happens, because by the time you get them there, you already want them focused. And that's kind of this picture here. These Psalms of Ascent are what they would sing on their way to Jerusalem. And so we've gone through a couple of them together. I think last week we did 3 of them all together, which was pretty hard for me. And now this week, most of them are small. There's 2 of them that are 8 verses. One's 9. Outside of that, they're 3-4 verses. They're pretty small. Doug, that's pretty good. I see 3-4 verses. I can do this. This morning's is the longest of the Psalms of Ascent. It is more than 2 times longer than any of the other ones. And we're going to only look at one this morning. Thank you. You're welcome. And I'll go ahead and give you it breaks down into 3 sections. We're not exactly going to look at it this way, which is why I'm going to give it to you this way. And then we're going to look at it and just kind of look at the 2 main topics. But if you were going to break this psalm down, Brother Moyer, it's going to give you this way. Verses 1 through 5 are going to deal with David's promise. And you can see it, the Lord remembered David and all of his afflictions, how he sware unto the Lord and vowed unto the mighty God of Jacob. And then it's going to go on, and it's going to talk about what his promise was. So it starts out, we got 5 verses that deal with David's promise. Then verses 6 through 10 go on and talk about or celebrate the return of the ark, because that's what his promise had to do with. Then it goes on through verses 11 and 18, and it closes out with the most important thing, and that is verse 11. The Lord hath sworn in years. Saul had the kingdom in a mess, left the kingdom in the mess, and ruled in the kingdom in a mess. Saul is the kind of guy who promised much, but he delivered very little. Saul is the guy who looked magnificent. And there's so much we can learn from looking at Saul being picked by the people. Okay, Bill, this is what we usually look for. Oh, did you see the new guy came to church? Oh, he'll be such a good leader. Look at him. He just looks well, and he dresses well, and he speaks well, and he doesn't stutter, and he's got all these things going on for him. And not one word about character is said. Not one word about anything that matters. It's just all the bright and glowing light. And that's exactly who Saul was. And I'm going to tell Justin, that is how we tend to look at things. I've talked to a lot of young people planning on marriage. Here's my question for every young lady. In fact, I've been off of no one. So you want a guy who's arrogant and full of pride, because let me tell you, those are the opposite of loving. Pride is sin. It's not. Love is about the others. Pride is about me. I will take nothing. Be careful. But it looks so good. Saul is the guy who looked so good. But towards the end of his life, he was defeated in battle. He was surrounded by his enemies, and he fell on his sword to avoid the challenge, to run from the conflict. Just let me just say, did he know God wouldn't deliver him from his enemies? No, he didn't. Did he even go to God to see if he would deliver from his enemies? No, he just looked for the easy way out and said, this is too much for me. This is a low point for the nation of Israel. They had wanted a king for 300 years. They finally got what they wanted, and it ends in defeat and disgrace. And so the nation of Israel is, I don't know if they could be more depressed. They looked at it as a true low point. But in God's view, this was the beginning of new things. This was the beginning of a better tomorrow. You see, because a new king is coming. And so here we go. A new king is on the throne, and that's the time this is written about. David is now on the throne. David, a man with a heart after God. David, a man who had been prepared in the desert for about 15 years. Let me tell you, there's something about being prepared in the desert. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about it, but I'm not going to miss it. He's spent, 5 years out there taking care of sheep? When he's taking care of sheep, Ben, when he's taking care of sheep, you know who he can talk to? Sheep or God? Was he treated fairly? No, his dad threw him off to the side, didn't even consider him. But who could he talk to about it? It was out with the sheep in the wilderness, alone, that he learned to develop this relationship. Okay, so then God uses him to slay Goliath, and Saul has killed his thousands, David's his 10,000s, and everything's going wonderful, right? Right at point, Saul throws a javelin and pins him to the wall. So what did he do wrong, Justin? Oh, nothing. Where does he spend the next 10 years? Running around in the wilderness, learning to depend on God. Now, he's prepared. He's not the only one prepared in the wilderness, by the way. Moses, prepared with the best of the best from the house of Pharaoh. God moves him out to the desert for 40 years and said, now you're ready. Paul, learned at the feet of Gamaliel, 3 years out in the desert, then you'll be ready. I'll give you one you don't think about. When did Jesus start his earthly ministry? Here, I would get that question wrong if you asked me, because I would just go straight. I love Matthew 5 so much. Sermon on the Mount. He announced his ministry, the Sermon on the Mount. I'd argue with the professor. He better give me half credit for that. But the truth is, Matthew chapter 4, he goes out in the wilderness for 40 days. Wilderness. There is something about this wilderness time, and I'm going to tell you, I really truly believe part of our problem today is we avoid wilderness. In the wilderness, we learn to abandon some things, to depend on some things, to trust in some things. It's in the wilderness that they become real. It's in the wilderness that faith grows. But today, wilderness hard times start to come. We turn to alcohol, we turn to drugs, we chase money, we spend money, we chase after different relationships, we get the new job, the new house, the new place. We move, we do whatever we have to so we don't have to face this wilderness time in our life. Brother Bill, you're right, Brother Jeremy. Thanks, Brother Bill. Nobody wants to go to the desert, but good things happen in the desert. There we learn, there we abandon, there we depend, there we turn in trust. Oh, back to setting the stage. When David comes on the scene, Brother Moore, David is determined to make a difference. He spent 10 years out there learning everything done the wrong way. He's had 10 years to say, I wouldn't do that, I wouldn't do that, I wouldn't do that. When I'm king, if I'm king, I believe I'll be king, I'm not going to do that. When I get to be king, I'm going to make a difference. This world is going to be better because God put me here. You read any of his early Psalms. Let me tell you, this is David's attitude. Lord, use me, I'm not going to fail you. Spiritually, Israel is in a terrible place. And David says, I'm going to change this climate. I want this to be better. David is a man of a big vision and big want and big goals. And that's a good thing. Because without goals and vision, nothing happens. You know the old statement, without a goal, if your goal is nothing, guarantee you'll hit it every time. David had goals, and he had energy, and he had drive, and he had direction. And David is probably my favorite person in the Old Testament. There's a lot of people there. To say favorite, he's probably my favorite. Brother Hank, he's my favorite because David is just full of passion. David's full of energy. When he messes up, it's energy. When he's hiding, protecting, worshiping, everything David does, big energy. Little guy, big energy. I like that. And I think it's important. It's important in every life. It's especially important in leadership. And I'm going to say this. But Hank, Brother Doug, every time I say anything that, deals with younger people, I always talk to you. That's just not because I think you need to hear this because it's safer. Nobody wants to hear, about how we messed up. But I do believe when it comes to young people, we are teaching or training or medicating desire away. Okay. Strong desire. This is what we've done. We said strong desire equal lust. We shouldn't lust anything. We're half right. We should have strong desire for the things of God. When we attach that strong desire to anything other than God, now we have lust for something that destroys. That's right, Ben? But what happens is we go in there and we take strong desire away. Now we have some kid walking around, isn't he good? No, he's boring. And he's not going to accomplish anything because he's got no drive, no desire, no energy, no goals. Jeremy, this isn't part of it. No, we talked about this in the last 2 times we've got together on the Psalms of Ascent. Remember, you take the arrow, you point the arrow, you fire the arrow. Remember, the mom has to wean the child. You train that child up. You aim that arrow. This is what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be aiming the arrow, not blunting the tip. David was full of passion and full of desire. And his greatest desire was to build the temple. And that starts with the restoration of the ark. Now that clock is going way too fast. The ark. The too wide, too high for the ark. You even say the ark, and I go, whoo. Brother Bill, that thing is only this big. It's got 3 things inside of it. Aaron's rod that's budded. God brings life. God's the sustainer of life. Manna, yes, he's going to provide for us. The tablets, the law. That'll take us all day. That's it. That's all that's in there. Beaten by gold, cherubim on the top, wings facing in. Boom. But that ark was the central place of Israel's spirituality. In Exodus chapter 25, where he told them to build it, he said, there, between those wings, on the top of there, that's going to be my footstool. That's where I will come and I will rest. That's where I will meet with man. That top, that footstool, that mercy seat, that was the place where one time a year the high priest would go in, the great day of atonement, and he would sprinkle blood on the top, right there between those cherubim. And God would take and he would give grace and cover his judgment. Brother Maury, there could be nothing more important to a Jew than that ark. It is the heart of Jewish spiritual life. The ark. It had led God's people through the Exodus. What led them across the river? It led them across the river into the promised land. But once they got into the promised land, we got 300 years, we call the times of the judges, where they kind of forgot about that ark. And every man did that which was right in their own eyes. And they began to neglect the spiritual importance of the nation. The ark lost its value. Those things just became routine. And be careful, they can just become routine. What they, you answer it. Until one time, it was just sitting there, had gone through 300 years of the routine. Saul had just gone out to battle and gotten defeated by the Philistines. And somebody in his crew said, hey, great. You know what? I remember when God told Moses, take the ark. Let's take the ark. Saul, in his great wisdom, good idea. Let's take the ark. Let's put it into the battle. By the way, that's not going to work. Should have known it'll never work. We can't be resisting God. I'll do it my way. Get back. We can't be resisting God and then try and use him like we're pulling out a hammer or a screwdriver. God, okay, I need you now. Now you make it better for me. You come in here and make it work for me, then go back. I mean, it sounds stupid what Saul did, but if you think about it, it's pretty common. I'll just do whatever I want to, but now God, take away all the cost and all the pain from everything I did. please make my kid not suffer for my bad decisions for the last 10 years. Israel was defeated. The Philistines took the ark. The center of the nation of Israel's worship, the place where God meets with man, Philistines took the ark. They took the ark, they placed it in their temple of Dagon, and they celebrated until morning. When they came in and found that their little statue, little altar thing, had fallen down and was basically bowing to the ark. Now, the Philistines don't like things that go bump in the night in their temple. So they came up with this plan. We don't want to hear. Stand that thing back up. Let's get this thing out of here. This thing's bad juju. So it goes a long list, Matt, where they move it from town to town. And you know what happens in every town? Bad juju. So then they get this idea. This thing is bad juju. Let's give it to the Israelites, and maybe it'll bring them bad juju. So they take the ark, and they give it back to Israel. And nobody pays any attention to it. And it stays wrapped up in a barn for 20 years. Until David. See, Brother Bill, that's what had been going on. That what happened was? That ark was stuck in a barn for 20 years. Every man did that which was right in his own eyes. Well, Saul didn't even care about, let's bring the ark. The ark didn't work. He forgot about the ark. The ark's given back to Israel. Nobody in Israel is thinking about the ark. For 20 years, it stays right there, which makes me ask, what happened on the Great Day of Atonement for 20 years? So, that brings us here. David becomes king. I'm going to make a difference. That starts with returning the ark, the place where man meets with God. Get the tabernacle ready. Let's get the ark. Where is it? It's been missing for 20 years. So it tells us right here what David did. Lo, we heard of it at Ephratah. This is Bethlehem, Ephratah. Okay, like the prophet. He's going to be born in Bethlehem, Ephratah. Okay, this is the old name for Bethlehem. So David wants the ark back, and he doesn't know where it is. Guess what he does? He goes home. The ark's been missing for a while. Let's go ask the old people. Let's go ask the old people. Saul took the ark and lost the ark. Where do you think the ark is? They even tell him. They tell him where it is. They say, well, we heard, Bethlehem, they tell him, we heard that it was found in the field of the woods. It was found in this place called the woods, Jara. It's a reference to Kirjath Jearim, which is where it's been sitting for 20 years. So he goes to look for it, and he finds out it's been sitting there in Abinadab's farm for 20 years. So it's even a longer story. They go to get the ark, and they try to do it in their own way, and some problems happen. But that clock's gone really fast. So, Brother Doug, in the end, David gets the ark to Jerusalem. But his goal is greater than that. He didn't want to restore the ark. David wanted to build a place. He wanted to build a temple for the ark. That's his goal. In fact, that's his promise. How he sware unto the Lord and vowed unto the mighty God of Jacob, surely I will not come into the tabernacle of my house, nor go up into my bed. I will not give sleep to my eyes, or slumber to my eyelids, until I find out a place for the Lord and habitation for the mighty God of Jacob. He wants to build him a temple, a place for the ark to stay. Here, wait a minute. Bruce, did he get to build the temple? If you ask me the three greatest men in the Old Testament, it's going to have to be Abraham, Moses, David. You got to throw Elijah in there. For me, I wouldn't put Jeremiah too far. Okay, but now we're stretching it. It's getting kind of personal. But David, Moses, Abraham, got to be there, right? If one of the big three can't do it, can't complete his promise, Justin, what about me? What hope do I have? Look at his commitment. He's not saying I'm not going to sleep. He's saying I'm not going to rest. I'm going to pour my very life in this one accomplishment. This is what I'm alive for. I'm not alive to sleep, and I'm not alive for joy, and I'm not trying to consume my life and have fun with it all. My life's purpose and goal is to build that temple. One of the greatest men in the Old Testament. I'll give you another one. This one's really easy. Outside of Jesus Christ, greatest men in the New Testament. Okay, almost everyone's just going to say Paul like it's really easy, but let me tell you, don't forget John the Baptist. Christ gives his own testimony about John the Baptist, greatest born of women. But anyway, Paul, Apostle Paul. Do you know the Apostle Paul says in the end of Romans 15, like 22 to 25, somewhere in there. I'm sure it's covered in there. You can check me. I'm sure it's in there. He says, I'm going to go to Spain. Yeah. Paul says, I'm going to go see Jerusalem. Then when I'm done there, I'm going to go to Spain. Anybody believe Paul made it to Spain? He didn't make it to Spain. So we got the greatest in the Old Testament, one of the greatest in the Old Testament, the greatest in the New Testament, and here they're facing this, that their goal and their desire, their dream in life, the bill never got accomplished. Now that I can apply. Because I have some goals, some dreams. Most of us have set out with goals and dreams. I've got a goal of how my marriage is supposed to be and how my family is supposed to be. I've got a goal for my career. I want to be financially independent so that I don't have the bondage of money holding me down and limiting my availability. I have a dream of having an impact for Christ. There are people he has put on my heart, and I have a desire that I be able to influence them for God. I have goals. Just like Paul, just like David. But somehow, through a combination of things like my own sin or the brevity of life or circumstances or even the sin of others, it was the sin of others that took Paul's life. They didn't do anything wrong. They just decided they were going to take his life. That's murder. There's this realization that I cannot accomplish everything exactly the way I planned. That I'm running out of time or opportunity or resource. For all God's done in my life, this one thing, it's not going to be fulfilled. This dream is not going to be there. You know, maybe it's a challenge with the children or the marriage or ministry or, Brother Wayne, this one thing, it just doesn't seem like, how am I going to deal with this? My mind is full of this. I would have liked to have been able to fill in the blank. For David, it's easy. He tells us he would have liked to have been able to build the temple. David was committed more than I've ever been committed, more than most men are committed, but he never got it done. Poured out my life. I've been driven. I've been dedicated. I've been committed. This is his oath. This is what shaped his life. Doug, I told you this psalm was very personal to me. I took this psalm and I said, what shapes my life? Well, from the moment I got baptized, I made a commitment to follow Christ. It shapes my life. At my wedding, I made a commitment to love my spouse. It shapes my life. These two things should be a part of every decision in my life. I had somebody challenge me when I was young. Before you ever teach, you need to make a commitment to be faithful to the Scriptures. Not try to accomplish your will with them. Just be faithful to what they are. Let me tell you, that sometimes is the greatest challenge. Because I get so full of self, I think I can manipulate and get the response I want. But I can't get anything done. It needs the Holy Spirit, which means just be faithful. And after the birth of each one of my children, we dedicated those children. And preacher, you know, that's just dedicating me. That's a commitment to raise my children and aim the arrow and point them and shoot them for His glory. So I went through these. And then here's the struggle. Those are the commitments of my life. I'm still working on every one of them. I'm still striving to be a better father. I'm still striving to teach and to teach well and to be understood and to lay it down the way the Spirit would want me to. Doug Short, I fail every day and I don't want to. I want to be a better Christian. I'm reading this psalm and I'm coming to the point that I will never be able to say, I've finished this. I've accomplished it. I'll never get to the place that it's done, which is why I said earlier, one person said, I've accomplished it, it's done. And you know what the whole second half of this psalm is about? Quit looking at what you're struggling with and look at what I've already done. That's His promise. His promise is completed. We say that because who knows if we get there. But I am smacked in the face with this idea that my performance will always be lacking. And then, all right, Bill, here's where I get in trouble, because here's where my mind goes way out here. I think that's kind of like the struggle of our time, specifically our time, especially if you look at it this way. I think we have a younger generation. I'm not talking about your granddaughter. I'm talking about 20 to 35. We have a younger generation that has sat and looked at their parents and their grandparents and said, here are these people who are driven, who are relentless, who have drive, who want to accomplish, and they've come to the Solomon decision of it's all futile. Look at their life. Because Justin, apart from God, what is that? What does my performance accomplish? Okay, I got 30 years of performance. Guess what I got? If I live 20 more years, I got 20 more years of performance, and I'm still not going to get there. And so they have stepped back, and they have looked and said, because you know what happens in our push for futility, our push for the American dream, our push to drive and to save and to buy and to own and to have. We've made God like the ark to Saul. You just pull Him out and use Him. And when you pull Him out and use Him, it don't work our way. Saul pulled Him out and said the ark's going to give us victory, and the Philistines ended up with it. But we have this generation that has stepped back and looked at it, and they've gone the exact opposite. They're going to pursue nothing. They're going to commit to nothing. And anything that somehow does stick to them, they're going to quit. But we're watching that generation, and it doesn't work any better. It's like we read the book of Ecclesiastes, and we skipped the last chapter. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep His commandments. Whole duty of man. And we just get stuck in that. So, the first half of this psalm, Brother Wayne, it opens up this problem. Surely the second half is going to answer it. Yes, it does. See, the first half starts this way. How he sware unto the Lord and vowed unto the mighty God of Jacob. Verse 11. The Lord hath sworn in truth. It starts with David's promise. Second half begins with God's promise. Right away, Justin, it begins with a switch of viewpoint. David, you've been living on what you're trying to do for me. David, you're looking at your performance and your value and all these things tied into... No. We need to switch this. Or did I give you Second Samuel? I don't know if I saw you this morning. 2 Samuel? Here's God's promise. He shall build an house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. Okay, this ain't talking about David, by the way. I will be his father, and he shall be my son. If he commit iniquity, I will chasten him with the rod of men and with the stripes of the children of men. Now you have to read this whole passage. This is the Davidic Promise. Brother Moy, this is what he starts saying. He said, David, this is what I promise you. I promise you, out of your lineage, there's going to be one who's going to rule forever. That means you got to live forever. That means that kingdom is going to be established forever. Now, David had to love that, but how is someone going to live forever? That had to be a challenge. Let me tell you, and this one that's going to live forever, he's going to come from your lineage, David, but he's going to be my son. God incarnate. Now, David had to love that, but he had to go, what? I just don't understand. But in this very beginning, here's the switch. You see, he starts to say, now we put these 6 pages together in 4 minutes. How do we get to the place that we understand it is not my performance? David's promise left him exhausted, never done. Why is he exhausted? It's never done. There's always something to do. I won't sleep. I won't go to my house. I won't close my eyes. I'm going to get this done. Sounds exhausted? God's promise, verse 14 right here in this psalm. This is my rest forever. It's done. It's not a work in progress. It's complete. Seated in heaven, I can answer your questions. We're out of time. I'm going to read this. It's a good thing I printed this up. I had decided I wasn't sure if I was going to. I didn't feel like playing with the settings on the printer. You could probably read it from there. Jonathan Edwards is writing about this wonderful thing called justification, which, by the way, that's what this psalm deals with. It's the justification of man. We're not justified by our works or by completing our promises or by our striving or by anything we can do. We're justified by what he's done. And that's why we live forever. But he would close it up this way. During the time of Christ's humiliation, from his incarnation to his resurrection, the purchase of redemption was made. Though many things have been done in the affair of redemption, though millions of sacrifices had been offered prior to his coming, millions of sacrifices had been offered. Nothing was done in those things to purchase redemption. It's like just a stay, a wait. If he doesn't come, they mean nothing. No part of the purchase was made. No part of the price was offered until now, until his humiliation, until his incarnation, until his coming. But as soon as Christ was incarnate, the purchase began. He came. He humbled himself to man. He left heaven to become man. His humiliation begins the whole time of Christ's life, till the morning that he rose from the dead. This purchase was being processed. Then the purchase was entirely and completely finished. As nothing was done before Christ's incarnation, nothing can be done after his resurrection. It's complete. There will never be anything more done in all of eternity to purchase our salvation. This is what he's trying to teach David. If we're looking to find rest or value in our performance or in, we're never going to be finished. There is a freedom from accepting that and understanding that. What that freedom allows, Brother Bill, it allows me to understand he's already put robes of righteousness on me. Now, I don't strive and work to complete. I don't even strive. I just do. I follow. I lead. And in that rest. In that is accomplishment. Not my accomplishment, but his. The difference in this psalm from David's striving to God's resting, from David's incomplete to God's complete. This is what happens when we head towards Jerusalem, the place where man meets with God. Everybody close in word of prayer this morning.